Hey, what's good with you guys? This is Ronaldo Hernandez, and today I'm back with another video called "What is the most reasonable explanation to what is and why does snapping tricep syndrome occur?" Disclaimer: I want to say I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a licensed individual. This video is just for educational purposes. Um, Another thing I want to say too is don't forget to like, comment, and share the video, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Alright, so before we start too, I also want to say that this is probably the most reasonable explanation to what Happy Triceps syndrome is. I know that's the title of the video, but I really mean that because um, with all my research and this and that, I was able to connect some dots, kind of relate to one thing to another, and I kind of like this is you could say I did like reverse engineering to what is Happy Triceps syndrome and how it occurs. Um, Now I could explain like what could possibly be the reason for why it happens, except for the actual snapping part. Like because what I'm going to say in a bit is just a lot of it's just a bunch of nerve entrapment issues. But this I guess you could say like I'll theorize that like with all this nerve entrapment and in regards to also improper shoulder mechanics and bad posture, it kind of just makes the either the tricep tendon, which I think is mostly specifically the ulnar nerve, because if you have a neuropathy issues, most likely it's the ulnar nerve. Um, it keeps rubbing over the bone or keeps snapping over the medial epicondyle of the elbow, and so. But yeah, I mean, let me get into that first, okay? Let me just, I got my notes too. There's a lot of information, so just bear with me. I'll try to be as clear as I can. But yeah, either way, this also only accounts for people who never had a traumatic injury to the elbow either, because supposedly you get snapping tricep syndrome like that too. And that's with regard to the elbow, this elbow deformity or elbow angle, the carry angle on the elbow, which is called cubital varus. Supposedly, you only get that from, if there was some type of injury to the elbow, like at a young age, when you're like a kid or whatever. And however, if you never had that kind of injury, and you just developed this out of nowhere, or you just one day you just notice that your elbow snapping, then this video could be for you. Alright, so let me just get into it. Alright, so now like I said before, I did like kind of like I try to like well yeah basically I try to do like reverse engineering right into why this happened. So well my thought process was I thought okay, let me kind of like pinpoint all the areas I have pain in my upper body, and then let's see where I go from there. And I think this is very important because if you have pain in your body and it's kind of like neuropathy pain, like as a burning, tingling sensation, like a stabbing pain, I don't know, or it just it just has symptoms of the nerve entrapment or neuropathy. Um, Most likely it's that reason you have some type of neuropathy or nerve entrapment. Alright, so that's basically what I did. So first one, the main one was pain in the side of my medial elbow and ring pinky finger. Now this is obviously probably the most like number one sign, the number one symptom that occurred in Savage Triceps syndrome, and that's because the ulnar nerve is rubbing over the medial epicondyle of the bone or medial side of the bone, or it's like snapping over, whatever you want to say. So um, this is always associated with ulnar nerve entrapment, which is actually found for in Savage Triceps syndrome. This is gonna be like the most like medical definition. This is the most medical definition I could find about the condition, and that is abnormal movement of the ulnar nerve out of the cubital tunnel and over the medial epicondyle during elbow flexion. Um, And then there's something else too. There's the mean of internal rotation. Doesn't say exactly where, but I'm assuming this is in regards to the shoulder. Internal rotation of the shoulder angle was 30.7. Range is 25 to 45 degrees. So it just basically means you're just more internally rotated like that to some degree, which is mostly seen with people who have cubitus varus, and most people who have cubitus varus have snapping triceps syndrome. What else? Okay, and then this is kind of connected all together. Ulnar nerve instability due to internal rotation deformity. I'm assuming internal rotation of the shoulder is not specific, but this is what exactly this. I'm just assuming this is what it is. And distal entrapment was considered to be the main cause of neuropathy. And this is in regards to what snapping triceps syndrome is. So the ulnar nerve instability, that's how it snaps over the bone, and then because due to internal rotation deformity, so reason why it most likely does snap is because of why the shoulder is internally rotated. And distal entrapment, I'm assuming that's like just in regards to like the nerve being entrapped from the internal rotation structure of the shoulder was considered to be the main cause of the neuropathy. Alright, so yeah, so that's like the main sign you will see. Most likely you will always get like that neuropathy on the medial side of the elbow. That's obviously the main ones, right? So we need to get that out the way. Now, the next following points I'm going to discuss are also other points in my body where I felt pain in, and this is what helped me connect the dots. So, I guess you could say what it really was, or what it really comes down to. So next is pain in the posterior shoulder armpit area. So what this is I would always get pain like, I guess you could say where supposedly your rear delt is at. Maybe considering also you could consider like it's around the area where the tricep inserts onto, which is like on the border of the scapula. Um, but yeah, just that whole region right here, all this region in the back of my arm, all this right here, it would always be in pain. It would always be burning. It would always be, something going on with it. And this is always associated, or this could be a sign of radial and auxiliary entrapment syndromes. Um, and like, let's see. Actually, I'm gonna get into it a little bit more later, but yeah, just remember that pain in that area can be associated with radial and auxiliary entrapment syndromes. Alright, next is overly flexed wrist fingers. Overly flexed wrist and fingers, so like that. So it's kind of like you're always kind of like bunched up like this, it's kind of like a claw hand. And this is actually associated with carpal tunnel syndrome, which is specifically the median nerve entrapment. Um, what do we call it? Yeah, that's something I see with people with snappy triceps syndrome too, or there's some kind of like association with that. Like there's always kind of like carpal tunnel syndrome type symptoms with people who have snappy triceps syndrome. And I had that too, so I thought, okay, yeah, that's something too. Um, that's something to kind of like take an account for. All right, next would be pain in the shoulder blades, neck, upper back, and around the clavicle. Now this is probably going to be the most one of the most important kind of, I guess you could say, entrapment sites that you need to know of, because this is like if you have this sign of nerve entrapment, this basically means this is the reason why everything else is happening. One of the main reasons why. And the reason why is because this pain in the shoulder blades, neck, upper back, or and around the clavicle, and like right here, upper back, all that, neck, is associated with brachial plexus compressor syndrome, or also known, or it could also be considered thoracic outlet syndrome. Now, if you have this, you most likely have scapular dyskinesis too, because they're kind of just both associated to it. Most of the time, thoracic outlet syndrome is it's also it occurs because of an improper scapular position. And if you already have improper scapular position, you probably have like some kind of like super like it's some kind of like so it's like suprascapular nerve entrapment, and that's like around this area right here. It's kind of connected to the super. It's around the supraspinatus muscle, and so that's also kind of pinpoint more into the pain of the clavicle. But the pain of the clavicle could also mean thoracic outlet syndrome. But if you have snapping triceps syndrome, most likely you have both of them. You have thoracic outlet syndrome and scapular dyskinesis. From what I found, that most of the time that happens. Most of the time you have both. So just remember that, you have pain in the shoulder blades, neck, upper back, and around the clavicle. It is always a sign of brachial plexus compression syndrome or thoracic outlet syndrome. They're basically the same thing. And if you have thoracic outlet syndrome, you most likely have scapular dyskinesis. Alright, now, yeah, we said that. Now, another thing I'm going to also discuss too is the cubitus varus part. Now, that is always kind of struck out to me because I'm pretty sure I never had like a traumatic injury to my elbow, which could have caused this. So, it's kind of like maybe I developed cubitus varus for another type of reason. So I tried to look into it, and all I could really find about cubitus varus is that it is a more internally rotated shoulder. And they didn't even say shoulder. I'm just assuming it means they are talking about internal rotation of the shoulder because there's only two main sites where people talk about internal rotation or external rotation, and that's at the I guess you can say the hips and the femur, and then the shoulders. That's basically the only areas where people kind of where people even use those terms, internal or external rotation. And then and then it's more internally rotated between 25 to 45 degrees, which I said earlier. Now this could be because of lack of lateral rotation or external rotation, right? Obviously, if it's more internally rotated, you just lack external rotation. You lack lateral rotation, which is the same thing because lateral means you're going that way, which is externally. All right, so now I was thinking maybe this is weakness of the infraspinatus and the teres minor muscles because those are lateral rotators, and this type of weakness is also associated with radial and auxiliary nerve compression, which I said earlier, in regards to pain in the posterior shoulder and armpit area. And now since I'm discussing that area again, pain in that area is also associated with like weakness of the lateral deltoid and the medial and lateral triceps as well, mostly the whole area of the triceps. So I mean, in regards to that, with me, I literally have weakness in all those. Like my triceps test weak. To be honest, specifically the long head, the long head of the triceps and the medial triceps tests are really weak, and they are really weak. Like I can barely even like palpate them, And so, yeah, most of the time, if muscles are weak, actually no, most of the time if you have nerve entrapments, the muscle will most likely be weak. Yeah, that makes more sense. Yeah, that's actually more correct. Because if the muscle's weak, it doesn't really mean that there's a nerve entrapment involved. But if there's a nerve entrapment in that site where the muscle's at, most likely the muscle will be weak because the nerve is entrapped. Something's like damaging the nerve, so obviously the muscle can't be as strong as it can be. Or it's not as strong as it should be. Okay, what else? And also, I kind of want to talk about cubitus valgus. So cubitus varus looks like this. Cubitus valgus more like this. They have like this type of carrying angle. And supposedly, if you have that, there's not really so much signs of what you may call it, snappy triceps syndrome. Like cubitus varus is more associated with snappy triceps syndrome. or sappy triceps syndrome is more associated with cubitus varus. But anyways, I wanted to talk cubitus valgus because I actually was kind of confused if I had both of them because I noticed I'm like naturally I'm more internally rotated like this, right? Nah. But I also noticed I can do this too, and it just looks more like cubitus valgus. But I purposely have to do this, So I mean, anyways, I just added this on here that cubitus valgus. It just means that they're more of an external rotated position. So I'm assuming they just lack medial internal rotation, which is this. So and that could be associated with musculocutaneous nerve compression. Um, which is I forgot what it really affects, but I'm pretty sure it affects the biceps brachii and I want to say the brachialis, or I think the brachialis is strong and the biceps are just for sure they're weak. But anyways, all these nerve entrapment sites that I kind of came across most of the time they always just lead back to thoracic outlet syndrome because if you have thoracic outlet syndrome, um, you will have all these other nerve entrapment syndromes, which I'll actually share the article where I found that information from, and I'll even make another video of it about it. This is why it's called Part One. But yeah, if you have all these signs of neuropathy, all these pain sites, most likely you have thoracic outlet syndromes, and if you have that, you probably have scapular dyskinesis, or maybe it could be the other way around too. If you have scapular dyskinesis, you most likely have thoracic outlet syndrome. And so, yeah, I just want to say that there's a lot of work to be done. Um, Trust me, I'm so in like rehab mode, and obviously I'm living a better quality life. I don't live so much in pain anymore. A lot of the pain has subsided. I'm still dealing with these issues though because I mean, to be honest, man, like this is not gonna go overnight. These muscles are so severely, utterly weak that it's going to take time for them to actually strengthen them, and that's even if you do everything right. You do everything right, and you also take into consideration the other probably the most important things to be done before you even start strengthening, which is like learning how to breathe, learn proper breathing mechanics, learn proper scapular mechanics, and then just managing anxiety and stress levels. Because from what I learned, that's actually one of the biggest culprits into regards to all of this. Is mostly it could be just be stemming from anxiety and stress, and that could be either from the past or that could be from what you're doing right now, or I mean, since I said anxiety, it could probably be about something about the future. I don't know, but yeah, um, because that's what anxiety is. You're just worrying about the future. So yeah, I'm going to make another video about this, and it's going to discuss about um having to fix first thoracic outlet syndrome, scapular dyskinesis, and if you have both of them, you most likely have, possibly, most likely though, most likely you have it, is sway back posture, which is like a form of posterior pelvic tilt, or also you might also have a lento-occipital misalignment, which is like a very severe forehead posture. So yeah, it's gonna take some time to rehab this. I want to say that. I want to keep saying that too because it's not gonna be an overnight thing. Like I had this shit for years, man. Like luckily I'm already on a good path. I'm already on the path to fixing this, but even then, I'm still looking at maybe 2 to 3 years. Another 2 to 3 years actually, maybe become a fully functional human being because um I mean, yeah, I'll just explain it in the next video because that's how I get more in depth with it. And I'm also gonna make another video what you need to do before you even do any of that. So there's steps to it, and yeah. So I hope this video was helpful. I'll even like again, I'll say I'll post the link to the articles where I found this information from. And yeah, thank you for tuning in. And this is a fast life.